You're watching the Desert Moon Hockey Podcast with Matt and Rich. Welcome back to episode 31 of the Desert Moon Hockey Podcast. I am Richard, and this is my co-host Matt. Welcome, welcome.
31. Who's a good 31 that played for the Coyotes?
I'm not even going to begin to try to guess.
Curtis Joseph? Was he 31?
Maybe.
Cujo? I'm gonna go with that because Telly was 32.
All right.
So let's go Cujo.
Well, we had some laughs, some cries, some just all the emotions this week with 3 games played. One of them being in Toronto, one being in Montreal, and one being in Ottawa. What do you want to start with first? Do we start with the happies? Or do we start with the sads?
I want to start with, I saw a Kyle Chipchura jersey in the wild last night.
Okay.
When I went to my first ASU men's hockey game. These tickets were like 5 rows off the glass over like 104 row E seats 3 and 4.
Yeah.
I paid like $34 each. I was like, these are really, really good seats. I was this close to buying tickets to the home opener. I was going to, but $300 on the 2 tickets wasn't gonna fly when I could just go to the ASU game and it's all well enough. But yeah, no, I'm walking around the concourse. I see a rogue Chipchura jersey. I'm just like staring at this dude. He probably thought I was weird as hell, which fair play. It was kind of weird, but I'm like I thought I was the only one with a Kyle Chipchura jersey. I don't even think Kyle Chipchura has a Kyle Chipchura jersey sitting in his closet. So, hey,
that's a great jersey. I loved Chippy. He was great. Super underrated
player. They would have
like
sold Chip churros. Like you put his face on the churro.
Yeah.
Chip churros.
Or you could just do like his face on the paper that you hold, right? Like super easy. Like
right there, that's a souvenir.
Yeah.
Get yourself some Chip churros.
Yeah. I'm all for it. I like that branding. I think I'm going to drag us into sadness territory first before we get to happy territory.
All right, so Nick Schmaltz, since this came out that literally after we got done recording, we're starting there.
We can go there. I'm good with that too. Yeah.
All right, so 6 to 8 weeks, Craig Morgan reported. I want to say that was literally within minutes of us getting off recording. Was it late Saturday night we had to do it again?
Yeah, late Saturday. I think so.
That's why things are getting a little kind of... Gotta get right back on track on Sundays. But, yeah, 6 to 8 weeks, that's a kick in the nads. Because, as much as I love Schmaltzy, good player, he works really well with Clayton Keller. Yep. The chemistry is unreal there. He can't stay healthy.
Nope.
And I mean, I don't know if the Coyotes should look to trade him, later on in the season, or if they should wait till next year. But at some point, when this core starts to really emerge, if Gunnar stays in the NHL this year, I think he's played well enough to where he's on that borderline where he might have just stolen a roster spot for the rest of the year. It's still 50-50 in my eyes. His 5th game played will be on the 22nd against Columbus, barring a healthy scratch. So my prediction was 5 games they get sent down. So right around there should be the time. We'll know, but. With him being on that borderline and Schmaltzy, we still have a retainment slot, and it depends on how well, because he played really, really well last year.
Yeah.
Should that maybe be a guy the Coyotes look to trade with the young core starting to come up, or should that be a guy that regardless, because he's good friends with Keller and he's still a good player, you just keep him on and you risk that injury factor?
I don't know. It's such a difficult decision, right? Because it comes down to great player can't stay healthy. And to me, with how much he's being paid, I don't think I want that on my team, no matter how good of a player he is. I loved watching Nick Schmaltz put up 7 points last year. And, I like what he does when he is healthy, but... if you can't stay healthy, even getting injured in the very first game of this season, I don't know what to do. I can't help you. And it's not just one thing that's been nagging. It's just a bunch of stuff, right? So back when he got injured a few years back, it was I think a knee or a leg of some sorts, and then it was another leg, and then now I think it's an upper body if my memory serves me. So it's like all over the place. And what's crazy to me is Nick Schmaltz isn't the type of player that like should be getting injured. If Lawson Krause tells me that he's broken his hand, I can understand that. You know, I'm like, all right, Lawson Krause broke his hand, but I understand that because that's his role is to not beat people up, but be physical. And it makes a lot of sense to the injury. The problem is that he's a finesse guy. How are you getting injured as a finesse guy? You know, even if you're going into the corners and digging out pucks, how are you getting injured doing so? Either, are you not protecting yourself, or are you just like prone to minute little injuries? I don't know.
Especially the more if they add up. I mean, like, even when he got injured in the preseason and they held him out for the last couple of games, and we were talking about it, one of my first thoughts after he got injured in game one, he didn't return after the first period, was it something he maybe should have sat out a couple of days for? Because it's now a 6 to 8 week injury. Was it something that got re-aggravated? Was it a completely different injury? Like, let's say, for example, he, like, had a... What sounds relatively minor, but wouldn't really be that relatively minor? Kind of like a toe injury?
Like a sprain, right?
Like a sprain? So let's say he sprained, like, his shoulder. It was upper body. Say he sprained his shoulder, and that turned into, like, a separated shoulder. Or, like... Was it something that just got re-aggravated and got worse, or was it just, yeah, he sprained his shoulder in the preseason, but he broke his wrist in that game one, which they just had upper body injury. I don't think they said surgery or anything, so it was 6 to 8 weeks. I should probably pull up the tweet at some point, but
yeah, it was 6 to 8. I'm pretty sure it was over a month. I know that for a fact. So
so he'll be out at least a month and a half, 2 months.
Yeah,
we'll see him around the holidays.
December, yeah. Probably get a few games in there.
We have such bad injury luck, and I don't know if it's like the medical staff. I don't know if it's just bad luck. I don't know if it's just players that come here and they're injury prone, but it's just that gut feeling of, hey, a guy probably should sit a couple of games. Would that have made a difference? And I'm gonna be like, hey, let's just say he had to sit out 1 week to start the season. He'd be back by now and be healthy. Just for example, if that is, like, if it was the same injury re-aggravated, if it's a different injury, like, you can't really blame anyone in particular on that, but it's just stuff like that. That's why I'm super cautious about injured players. I'm super like, hey, if they need to sit a couple of games, we got a couple of players in the AHL hungry for a couple of games played. Like, Schmaltz is not going to be replaced by Liam Kirk. He's not going to be replaced by, Carcone.
Yeah.
So, like, he'll have his roster spot when he comes back. So it's just, that's why, like, that's my main line of questioning is, was it something that if they held him back the first week or so, first couple of games, it would have been fine? Was it just a different injury and it was a freak accident? They don't really elaborate too much on it when it's 2 months.
I would be curious about the, like, is the medical staff kind of responsible for these injuries? Because I don't want to throw blame. I want to be very cautious with that. But my biggest concern is that I'm pretty sure last year we had the most man games lost due to injury, right? And then, like, we're always consistently, like, top 5. I want to say during the Talkit era, there's a time where, like, we were also number 1 for most man games lost due to injury. Like, is that all on the coaching? Is that on the players? Is that on the medical staff? Like, what is it? And, you know, my concern would be, is there a medical staff there that goes, you're about a week out, but you should be fine? Or is it, you know, another factor that's causing this aggravation of injuries on this team?
Remember 2018-19? The only reason Garland got his shot, and, like, that was the first year I started covering the team for my YouTube channel. And it's like, hey, this Garland kid, he's great. He's playing in Tucson. He's playing well. He should be coming up to play. Like, there at least Richard Panik could have been scratched for Connor Garland the entire time. Then we lost all these man games. Michael Bunting comes up. He scores a goal, I think, in his second game or third game up. And they still sheltering him on the fourth line. Kevin Bianco comes up, and I think it's injured. I think he broke his foot or was a leg injury.
Yeah, what a great injury for him.
Yeah.
Well, not to be rude here, but first game he injures himself. Like, this is a guy who probably would have had 1 to 2 games, and paycheck wise, he probably would have made like, $10 to $20,000. He gets injured that whole year, makes $250K just from the injury. What a paycheck. Sorry to go off on a tangent.
I wish I can get $250K for being injured, but no, it's such a consistent thing. They've lost so many man games for a long time. Like, I'm just going to pick 18-19 as a starting point, but that's when I started watching. We've always had players out consistently. And then also towards the end of that season, 18-19, Derek Stepan, he looked terrible. And he's talking about, he just put a knee brace on and went out there and played.
Yeah.
He was probably, 60% optimistically? And I remember getting mad about that. And I got flamed for being angry that they're playing injured players, yet it didn't help the team. It didn't make them win those extra games. And on top of that, he didn't even end up looking that much better the next season because it probably also was still aggravating him. Doesn't mean that he's not healed enough to play, but it's like if it's still aggravating you, it's still going to affect your play. It hurts you on the ice. Look at Phil Kessel. That first training camp, he looked phenomenal. He was skating around like he was still a boy in his 20s. Then he's clearly playing injured. They're playing him on the fourth line, ridiculously limited minutes. Anyone else in the AHL would have got those games. I'm not saying they win like 15 more games or something stupid like that, but you're getting a couple extra wins because you have more fresh legs. You're not just giving a guy minutes because, he's got that Iron Man streak. But again, we constantly play players that are injured, and then it leads to bigger injuries down the line. It leads to, he would have been out a week, but we couldn't have him miss this game, so now he's out a month. Now he's out a month and a half, 2 months, and just kind of briefly get this over with, because this is kind of already going on a little long. Connor Timmins is out week to week, so assume like 2.5 weeks, something like that.
Yeah.
So it's he just comes back. I don't really think he looked that good, to start, but it's also he didn't play professional hockey for a year. Like, I'm not going to look at him, bust. But at the same time, he immediately gets re-injured, and I'm just like, too much smoke for there not to be some sort of fire. There has to be something fundamentally wrong. And again, whether it's training, medical staff, he's good to go a week early, stuff like that, or just we keep acquiring, injury-prone players. But if anything, my eye has to immediately go on to, strength and conditioning. That's the first place you'd have to look in a situation like that where durability is a problem. So I'm like, what are you doing there?
Could be
first
that.
Question.
Could be in that
So
section.
anyway, there's some bad news.
I was going to say, too, not to keep going on tangent after tangent here, but, man, just remember, when you're going to, make a trade, doesn't that trade look a little bit better for Colorado with each injury that Timmins has, right? It was a first in Timmins for Darcy Kemper. Kemper gets them their cup. They give up a first, which turned into Maverick Lamoureux. Obviously, there was another trade involved to get that pick, but you know what I mean. The asset essentially was Maverick Lamoureux and Connor Timmins. And I liked the idea of Timmins, but man, he suffered a knee injury in the minors with Colorado. He had a concussion with Colorado. Comes here, gets injured by Radko Gudas in his first year. I think that was another knee injury or leg injury. And then this year, starts out, looked a little slow to me. I agree with you. Defensively, he didn't look great, but, he was making plays in the offensive zone, getting good shots through, and re-injured. It's one of those things where, excuse me, it's crazy. Don't always, value your assets that you have in the system so highly. That's all I'm going to say.
Just take a couple of seconds, because this was literally the entire reason I was not perturbed, not angry this is a terrible trade, but I was like, this could come back to bite them. Imagine if they would have gone with what the rumor was and
Oh, yeah.
stood firm on Alex Newhook.
Yeah, I know.
Just
They weren't going to get him,
because
though.
literally Colorado gets their cup, so it's
Mhm.
like giving
Well-
away Newhook to get that cup because Newhook played. He was a role player pretty much on that team because of how they've been adding a lot of depth over the last couple of seasons. Like they're deeper than they were when they played the Coyotes in the playoffs a couple of years ago in the bubble. So it's like they've been adding more and more depth. He was a role player on that team, a good player, but imagine if the Coyotes stood firm and they get Newhook last year instead of Timmins. Newhook probably stays healthier. They might end up getting an extra win or two. It wouldn't translate to much, like record-wise, but it might have translated into more building chemistry. Might have translated to more. Okay, we didn't need to pick up an extra center, or we have an extra center depth, or if you switch to the wing, we have more wingers. Like whatever you can, whatever you're fitting them in. Just imagine if they stuck to their the alleged rumors. If they stuck to their guns and said no, Newhook or bust, let Colorado start their season without a starting goaltender. You just basically do it what they did with Jacob Chikrin, except for Chikrin's actually hurt, and just not play Darcy Kemper to start the season, and then just wait until, hey, we need a goalie, and then maybe they budge. Now, maybe it never happens, and they end up getting nothing, or they end up like having to settle for just a first or like a couple of seconds. Like it could have backfired easily.
Yeah,
like,
that's
this whole like GM thing is not just NHL 23. Hey, I made the you saw that stupid ass trade that I made where I got Shane
Ridley,
Pinto and Riley Grieg for Chikrin, and then they had Norris on the trade block, and I got him for like Timmins and a pick, or 2 seconds or something stupid like that. So it's like it's not that easy, but at the same time, considering we now know the results, everyone had Colorado as a cup favorite for the last like 2 or 3 years. They were obviously a couple pieces away, including a goaltender. Just imagine if they stuck to the rumor that they're alleged guns. Just imagine. Because now we're dealing with Connor Timmins doesn't seem like a bad person. I don't have a single negative thing to say about him as a person. But on the ice, what can I say about him? He's played, 6 games as a Coyote? Because he got hurt really early last season.
I think he got hurt 9 games in last season. So he's probably played close to like 10 or 11, I would say.
Let's just call it 10 to 12 games. He literally hasn't even played a quarter of a shortened season for us in the 2 years he's been here.
Yep.
And that's a problem. And again, I'm not just trying to pick on him. It's also just, even at the time, I was just like, hey, like, Newhook was the better asset. Even if we had to throw in like a third or a second or something, I don't think I would care.
Yep.
Because, that's just how much better that asset would have been.
And
but at the same time, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and coming back to like being careful about injury players, right? Like this is what I was talking about a few weeks back with like, is it Christopher Kolanos or is it Sidney Crosby, right? With your injuries and how people come back. This is also why going back to the Chikrin trade talks, like in LA, there's Alex Turcotte, which has had injury problems and not being able to get back into the lineup. Now they're concerned. I do think that like he is a good player, but is he going to end up like Connor Timmins? It's going to end up like oh god, who's the Blues player that was moved on? Is it Robbie Fabry? Fabry? He was a really good player, but just always injured. I think it was Fabry. Anyways, yeah. Sorry for that.
I don't know why my brain wanted to say Bushnevich, but I know I'm probably wrong.
No.
I know I'm like 99% wrong. That's
he did
I know they moved on from him.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it was because of injuries.
Yeah, he was moved, but it wasn't Bushnevich.
But I don't know. I keep having these questions because like my thing for this season, same thing as last season, is I just want progress. I just want to see what this core is going to be. I want things to start solidifying. I want to see good young talent coming in, and it's just, if it would have been doable, like let's just hypothetically right now, it would have taken one extra third round pick, and then you get Newhook instead of Timmins. Let's just say for the sake of argument that we can guarantee that.
Yeah.
Would you make that deal? Because I would in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I think so. I think I would. I just don't think they would have gotten rid of Newhook. Newhook looks so good, and yeah, I don't think they would. But going back to the trade, man, could you imagine if Colorado actually traded for Darcy Kemper when they should have, which was at the trade deadline of the previous year? He was available. We were all saying it. We were all saying Colorado, you need more goalie depth. Colorado, give up that first or Darcy Kemper. They could have had maybe back-to-back cups potentially.
Potentially, which also would have raised Kemper's value more. And even if let's just say, like, they felt the pressure at that trade deadline, because they probably, when they failed to get out of the second round that year, that's when they probably felt the pressure, like, we need our starting goaltender, plus Grubauer leaving in free agency. So it's like, that is what sparked the trade, but just imagine if they felt that pressure before, we probably would have got whatever we wanted.
Yeah, probably.
Unironically.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I look back at that, and whether it would have gotten us Newhook or if it would have just gotten us like a first and a second again, I'm just looking at it purely for the Colorado aspect. Man, you guys should have absolutely done that. You could have had back-to-back cups, and now you're seeing the repercussions of that with a lot of your guys end up leaving because you can't afford them.
And for the Coyotes aspect, we're stuck with a damaged player, and I'm just gonna talk about it like an asset. I'm gonna be as disconnected as possible, just because this has to be discussed from a business perspective. You're left with a damaged asset, and then Maverick Lamoureux. Someone I'm high on, they're obviously high on, and in 3 years, if he's breaking out on the roster, like he makes the roster in 3 seasons, and he looks good, and he's someone that could probably be like your defensive anchor. He's fixed a couple holes in his game. Maybe he ends up potting 10 goals this season, and he really uses that size on the defensive zone. We're not going to care. Same thing with Colorado doesn't care that they give us that extra asset in the trade because they won the cup. They don't care about losing that first-round pick. They won the cup. So, same thing, we won't care. Just straight up won't.
Yep.
And completely cool with that. Hope that happens, but I have to look at it for what it is right now, currently, and it's just like, what do you do with Timmins? He's an RFA at the end of the year. You haven't got 20 games out of him. You haven't got a good sample size. Do you try to give him a bridge contract? Do you not tender him the offer so you can try to get him come back cheaper but risk him being a UFA?
I'm gonna be real with how much our defensive depth that we have. I would say if he comes back and plays the rest of the season after his 2-week stint of injury, right? And he comes back, he plays the rest of the season, he looks all right. He looks like an NHLer. He doesn't need to blow my socks off. He doesn't need to be, a offensive dynamo. But he looks like a solid young defenseman. I would say extend him. If he has one more injury this season, I would say walk away from it. That's just my opinions. I would say it's too much. I would walk away from it.
I'll go one step further. If he looks like an NHLer and he doesn't get hurt between now and the trade deadline, I'm trading him. Because we've already seen him have the amount of injuries in his career, a very short amount of time, and with our bad luck, I'm looking at it like, at this point, if we can get that asset's value up, I'm not risking it. I'm just going to be like, hey, who will give me a second and a third? Who will give me a third, like a second? Whatever you think the value is for a good young defenseman. Hey, he has injury issues, so maybe we can sign him for cheaper. Maybe a team that needs that solid young defenseman that is a little more strapped for cap space. If it works, I'm looking at whatever value I can get. I'm not giving him away for like a 4th-round pick and that's it or something. But at the same time, if he gets that play up, he looks like an NHLer, I would just trade him. Because we also have plenty of good young defensemen coming up as well. And by the time it's time to compete, you also want to have an open spot or two to get a couple veterans. Yeah. So it's like, that's my gut. If he retains, gains any value, I'm just flipping that at the deadline. And I'll be like, hey, he's 23 now? He's in his 20s. I'll go for an 18, 19-year-old kid that I can mold from the start, or,
Yeah.
probably won't have the injury issues.
All right. Well, speaking more into bad news, let's talk a little bit about we went to Montreal and the Senators, Ottawa. I don't know why I couldn't think of Ottawa. We went to Ottawa and got our socks blown off. First game didn't look so great. A couple bad turnovers, including one from Clayton Keller, where he hit Gostisbehere in the feet, and Cole Caulfield grabbed the puck and just threw it at Vejmelka, and Vejmelka couldn't hold on to it. This is the
Imagine if the Coyotes took Caulfield instead of that was the draft for Soderstrom, right?
Soderstrom, yeah. We moved up. Everybody was like, "Oh my God, they're moving up for Caulfield." Could you imagine Caulfield and Keller together? And then they took the guy who I wanted. Feels bad.
Goal Caulfield. I've been high on this kid pretty much like as soon as he went on my radar. And a couple years ago, I'm like, he has the skill to be a consistent 30-goal scorer.
Yep.
Like, just straight up, he does. We haven't had a natural goal scorer like that in forever. Gunnar, his shot, I have to agree with Luke Lipinski. I know, this makes me feel gross having to agree with Luke Lipinski, but he has such a natural shot. It's such a high-quality shot, Gunnar does, where it's like, I think we do have our scorer that we haven't had in forever. But now imagine, instead of Soderstrom, who so far through, I think it's 3 games in the AHL, has no points and really hasn't been much of a factor. I'm assuming he's played okay defensively. I think his plus-minus numbers are decent. But at the same time, the team's also a little better around him. So how much of that is him? How much of that is the team? And even then, I haven't really got to watch much besides highlights and look at notes. So I could be wrong on that, too.
Yeah.
It's his 3rd season in the AHL. I think it's funny. I think he played, exactly 32 games in the AHL, both of the last 2 seasons. But instead of having that, we could have Cole Caulfield on this roster right now. And even with the scheme being different, I still think... I'm not going to say, oh, he's a 30-goal scorer under Andre Tournier, but he's probably a 20-goal scorer. We probably have him and Keller lighting the lamp. It's entirely possible Schmaltz goes back to center, and we didn't need to keep Boyd, and we could have traded him at the deadline and got some decent value from him from a team that thinks, oh, look at how much his upside has gone up, even though it's because he's playing first-line minutes in Arizona. But if you could have got assets, you could have got assets. I'm just like, again, these little decisions.
It's not just Caulfield. Do you know who was picked after Soderstrom?
Go ahead and tell me.
I do. Okay, ready for this? So I'm pretty sure the rumor was that the Coyotes moved up in front of Minnesota to take Soderstrom because Soderstrom, Minnesota said that they were going to take Soderstrom. So the Coyotes moved up to take Soderstrom, and then you heard Chaika afterwards, oh, we thought Soderstrom was number 3 on our boards. That was a oopsie moment. Yeah, so Minnesota gets screwed over by the Coyotes. We take their guy in Soderstrom. Drats. I guess we'll have to move on to our second guy, Matthew Boldy. Oh, what a consolation prize for Minnesota.
and look, again, I'll say it over and over. This is not an attack on Victor Soderstrom. I don't have an opinion on him as a person. I'm only talking about the asset.
Yeah, and he's still young. He's a defenseman. People forget this. Defensemen take a while to grow. I had an argument with somebody in the Discord. There's a Discord server for PHNX, and we were talking about like hypothetical trades and stuff like that. And somebody was talking about who would you take from Montreal to take on Shea Weber's contract back when it was still there. And I was like, if I'm the Coyotes, I want Caden Gooley. I'm like, I want Gooley. I like what he has. I like the toolbox that he has. And somebody literally called me a moron, an idiot, on there. Because I wanted Caden Gooley because of the toolbox. Even though he didn't have much defensive success in the minor leagues. What a surprise. He's growing into a decent defenseman for the NHL. Because when you have those assets, when you have the toolbox, it takes a while for some defensemen to actually get the defensive side of their game under control. And that's the same with Soderstrom. It could be.
Giannis Moser's 22, right? He was an overager when he got drafted.
No, he's like
I remember
20.
he was 20 or 21.
He's like 20.
Let me double check this. I
Yeah.
thought I saw earlier he was 22.
He was
an overager.
He was a single overager, so he was drafted at 19. I know that. He wasn't a double overager.
He's 22.
He is 22?
Yep, he's 22 right now.
What?
He was like 20 when he got drafted. Like he
Was
was over.
really?
He wasn't 19. He was 20.
Was he a double overager?
Yeah. Why do you think the Coyotes got him where they got him? Because everyone's like, oh, overager bad, but it's like Kyle Pereira, my good friend. He's a scout. Was saying he is the most NHL ready of the picks the Coyotes took that year, and he came in his first year and immediately took a spot.
Looked good.
He is a top 4 anchor at 21 years old in the National Hockey League. So I think that also might that, because he was a second round pick in 2021. That makes Soderstrom look terrible. And again, it has nothing to do with Victor Soderstrom himself. It's because this kid came in and immediately made an impact, but people aren't going to really pay attention. He was an overager. It took him years to get to the point where he was at. So it's like with defensemen, same thing with goalies. That's why I'm still not giving up on Prosy, because I think he's still a good goalie down there.
Yeah, especially goalies. Goalies take a really long time.
Goalies can win the Vezina this year and then have an .820 save percentage for the next 3 seasons. Goalies are one of the weirdest positions in the National Hockey League.
Oh, yeah.
Like, there is almost no... Talk to any scout, talk to any coach, talk to goalie coaches, talk to anyone.
Yep.
People that I don't get to talk to very much. Talk to anyone, and they will say the goaltending is one of the hardest positions to gauge.
Go back and watch that first cup run of Chicago. And even though, yes, they had a stellar team, Antti Niemi was like an unreal goaltender during that playoff run. And immediately the next year's in San Jose. He gets traded to San Jose, and there was like barely a 900 save goalie. Like, what happened?
Look at Aiden Hill. His first stretch in 2018-19, he looked like he could be a starter.
Yeah.
Now, I remember saying at the time he's probably always going to be a fringe guy, probably going to be an NHL goalie, but probably your 1B. I remember saying that at the time. I hope I'm remembering everything correctly. But it's like, look at him now. He's sticking around the NHL. He's an NHL goalie, but he's no one's number 1. He's not your 1A. He's right around where I figured he would be. And again, that's just from what I remember. Hopefully, I'm as consistent as I possibly can be. But it's like, goalies are weird. They can look phenomenal 1 minute. The second you figure them out, and I was saying that in 2018-19, I'm like, don't play Hill this many games in a row. Give him one night off, and then 3-4 more games, another night off. Like you have to. Goalies want to play every night, but the more footage you get on someone, their flaws are front and center. And when teams start taking advantage of those flaws, you get inside a goalie's head. Goaltending.
Yep.
The mental aspect is probably more important than the physical aspect. I would imagine a lot of goalies would probably agree. As soon as you start second guessing where how you should move your body, you're gonna let in way more goals, because that extra half a second of hesitation. Well, your blocker is down here, not up here. It goes in. Your glove is over here, not back here. It goes past you. It's a very fickle position. So that's why I'm not giving up on him. I think Tendik's looking pretty good at 22 years old down there. Coronin had a pretty decent little run last year, because they lent him over. He didn't even have a contract. I think he had to sign a 1 year with Tucson itself, not the Coyotes.
Yeah.
Because he still hasn't signed his ELC. Or just on loan. He was still getting paid by his other team. Don't know how the money side of all that works, but he was on loan. We're not going to fully know. Prosy, this year he has to show something to get himself in the NHL, but at the same time he's also 23 years old this season. He's had those years of developing. Everyone else, it's going to need 3 to 5 years. Defenders, 3 to 5 years. Not everyone's going to be, even Moser at 2021 coming in looking as good as he did. Not every defender can do that.
Yep.
So it's I really hope Soderstrom gets his offensive side back, just to kind of try to bookend something on Soderstrom before jumping in. They're weird positions. They take time, but it makes you look worse, because you have one success in a second round over here, and the 2 players you should have been looking at for the positions the Coyotes needed in Caulfield and Boldy already look 10 times better.
Yeah. Yeah, that one's a little bit of a yikes on that one. But back to Goal Caulfield.
Oh my god.
The Goal Caulfield scores by an oopsies on Clayton Keller's not so good pass.
Mm-hmm.
The game just got out of hand real quick. And yeah, they tried to make a game of it, but I mean, the score was like 4 or 5-0. Like, you're playing for pride at that point, and the other teams let their foot off your neck. And yeah, that game, the only thing that we really got out of it was Slavkovsky got his first goal. Congratulations, you beat an AHL team. It only took you how many games to finally score one?
Oh, come on. Let's focus on the Montreal fans that were, like, celebrating like they won the cup in the comment
I
section.
know.
And I'm like, dog, like, you beat a
You
tank. It's the greatest tank on ice.
you beat a team that has, aside from Toronto, given up 6 goals in every single game. Like,
Literally. Every single... It's like, oh, well, you
literally.
guys beat Toronto. Like, I did see one person try to make the argument that we beat Toronto, so, like, we're not that bad. It's like, I stand by... We're still not as bad as everyone thinks. Because
Yeah.
I also see a lot of the upside with some of the younger players. Like I'm going to say it right here. Because I'm pretty sure I called that Dylan Gunther goal where I was on my Coyotes report. I'm like, on this Canadian road trip, he's going to score his first NHL goal. And I want to say he did it, against... Was it Toronto
Ottawa.
or was it Ottawa? It was
Ottawa.
Ottawa, yep. It was yesterday in Ottawa. I'm like... So I ended up calling that. But I want to talk very briefly about Barrett Hayton and Jack McBain.
Yeah.
I think both have looked really good for different reasons. Jack McBain's had a couple good shots, good opportunities. He's mostly been that sandpaper, like, grinding forward. Pretty much, I don't know when the scoring's going to happen. Obviously, the 20-goal season probably ain't going to happen this year with the role he has definitely, like, stapled for himself, which is fine. He doesn't need to be a 20-goal scorer. Like,
Yeah.
if we're going to get this level of high-quality bottom six play out of him for what was... I think he was a third-round pick we traded, or a second-round pick?
Yeah,
We traded to acquire him.
second to get him.
So it's like that's still going to be a quality asset. The goal scoring will eventually come. I just don't know how much.
Yeah.
He's an NHLer, like solid NHLer. I would imagine the depth scoring has to be around the corner. And Barrett Hayton has looked as close to elite as I think he ever has. Like all around, being in the right spots, being a little more tenacious in the corners, more crisp, smart passes, leading some pretty decent opportunities. I think he's even also helping to run a surprisingly okay power play unit for considering the fact that we were bottom 5 last year.
Yeah, the thing that makes me worry about him though is I think he's pointless in these first 5 games.
In these first 5 games, but it's right around the corner. Like
I'm just hoping he doesn't get snake bitten. That's my biggest concern. Like I can see that he's looked better this year. I agree, but man, at some point you got to get something in here. You know, scoring once every 5 games is not. You can't let that happen. So,
I think he's just starting off. I don't know if it's just like it could come down to puck luck because was it Jonas Donskoy? I remember if it was when he was with Colorado or Seattle or another player that went to Seattle. He had a great year for Colorado, and despite the fact that all the exact same things in Seattle, like all around the net, good scoring opportunities, he just wasn't getting the bounces. He just wasn't getting the puck luck. Like Barrett Hayton, I have to imagine if he can get that first point in the next 2 games, that he shouldn't get too snake bitten, but we're probably at the point where it might be frustrating.
yeah.
Where it's like, at some point, like he knows he's doing all these things right. He knows he's doing all the little things right, and that with Clayton Keller, you were there for the Keller's overrated video. You were there when I was like, but there's so many holes left in his game. Like he needs to do this and this, and then he did it, and then he just turned into that excellent, two-way player that was smart, that wasn't turning the puck over very much, that was actually winning a couple puck battles. Like, once you start doing that, scoring should come. The production should come. But you also don't want to get too frustrated at, I'm doing everything right and I'm not getting rewarded for it, then you fall back into bad habits. So it's like, I think Hayton needs to score in the next couple of games just to kind of avoid that, but I feel like when he scores, he's probably going to have a multi-point game the first game, and he'll probably end up being about a point per every 3 nights player. Right around there.
Hopefully.
Because if he can just figure it out. Because I'm like, it'll come. I just don't want it to be November 22nd or whatever when that first goal crosses the line.
Yeah, hopefully not. And there's also a lot to put on to the team being on this really long road stint as they're building the annex onto the mold arena. You know, that definitely doesn't help. It, like, don't forget that. I know that a lot of people are going, wow, this team really sucks. And they're not going to be very great. Like, we knew this, but it's a lot worse when you're, like, not able to come home and sleep in your own bed. It's always a rough experience.
I'm going to say this right now. Whenever they hit these couple really big homestands, I want to say it's December and February, or might be December and January. I'll have to double check the schedule. When they hit these big homestands,
Yep.
I want to be very effing clear when I talk right now. They are not a playoff team. They're going to look as damn close as this roster can be. Because when you get that, you know, you're comfortable at home, it's going to be a much more low-pressure environment, but with higher energy.
Yep.
And they'll be able to kind of really establish a rhythm. They will start looking much better than you expect.
Yep.
Again, not playoffs.
No.
But I think they'll rattle off some wins, and at the same time, 1-4-0 right now is still better than the 0-4-1 start they had last year. They are still performing better overall. Hell, I want to talk about that Toronto game very briefly.
Wait. I've been holding this patiently on my cue card.
Release, Richie.
All right. Been patiently holding this for our video viewers. You can see what I'm holding. I'm holding a Tucson Roadrunners Matias Maccelli photo that I got at the draft party, and damn, do I look smart for picking up this photo, because as of right now, Maccelli looks like a man on a mission. I don't know if you have been micro watching him, but holy crap, has he looked good. This is a guy who, after losing Connor Garland, sucks, but now we have a slightly bigger left-handed Connor Garland. And
remember when you said he wasn't the board battler? Remember you said he didn't have...
I did,
he
yeah.
didn't have that...
He has impressed me.
He's developed it.
Yeah, he's really impressed me. I didn't really like his control on the boards, but him, especially that Ottawa game, just watching him Datsuk back and forth, you know, along the boards, like, catch me if you can, and just flipping back and forth. That was really impressive to watch. And he definitely has shown that he can play on the boards. And
also, like, just his control, like, again, you guys know Connor Garland was my favorite player on the team. Like, it went like Connor Garland, Kyle Capobianco, then whoever else. Bunch of scrubs. But Connor Garland, as good as he is and was, Matias Maccelli, I don't know how the hell he hit this extra gear. I thought, again, I'm cautious. I was like, hey, go back to the AHL, score 20, 30 goals down there, then you come up next year. He did not allow them to cut him with how well he was playing in training camp and preseason. But I'm like, hey, I've still seen kids get cut, you know, start of the season. No, he earned it. And now he has 2 assists in 5 games. He's not going to blow you away with like 40 goals, 30 goals, something stupid like that. But he has taken that NHL spot and said, I dare you to cut me.
Yep.
Like, whatever he did to hit this gear, I'm going to personally thank Richie, because as soon as Richie started talking that trash, saying he didn't have that Connor Garland energy, he's not as small as Connor Garland, but little man went out there and said, hey, I'm going to get that Connor Garland energy, and he's silkier with the puck. I think his handles are even better. And
crossing the blue line, like, he's looked perfect on his blue line entries, being able to slow it up and keep it away from the defenseman, even getting through him with like a solid little dangle to like get himself into a better open space. Like he's really mastered that part of his game, and he's becoming definitely a possessional gem. Like I still worry about the shot. I haven't really seen him use it at all, and I don't remember it being like a really above average shot. It was kind of just an average shot. But the possessional side of his game, like he looks like, you know, he's there. He's ready for it. And that's fine. Like, let me be very clear. You don't have to be some sniper that is putting up 40 goals. You just need like 10, 15. Make sure that the goalie respects your shot, but you can still, you know, pass off, dish it, whatever you got to do.
I mean, what he's on pace for somewhere around. Would it be 30 assists or would it be sub 30 assists? He's still on pace for a pretty good season.
Yeah, something like that. Two
So,
points
if
in
he's
5 games. Yeah.
if he's a 10 goal scorer, let's say 10 to 12 goals, I'm not going to be mad at all because with in the AHL, it felt like even though he scored a lot, if you look at his assist numbers were always 2 to 3 times higher than the goals. So, so it's maybe he's realizing those are his biggest strengths and assets are his pass, his setup game, his handles, his controlled entries, and he's I'm just gonna double down on that. If the goals come, the goals come. If I shoot, I shoot. But it's if he's getting 30 to 50 assists whenever he hits his prime, he's going up there. Is anyone gonna care? He's scoring 10 goals.
No, definitely not. But I'm just saying, you still have to have some sort of shot because then a goalie is going to go, oh, you never shoot. I don't have to worry about you. I'm just going to watch
you
for
want
the
to have that
pass.
threat, or else you're going to come in you'll get a couple of goals by hey, you're not going to shoot whatever, so you'll sneak a couple in that way, but it's always better to know, hey, he could shoot because then you get the goalie more on edge. You open up more space on the opposite side, and you're getting even more goals than those couple you're going to steal because people are always open. So it's what you're saying is 100% accurate, but what I'm saying is also if he just keeps piling on the assists, I don't think anyone's going to care if his shot just stays decent at the NHL level. Still room for improvement. He still needs to get there. But I just don't think anyone's gonna be mad about that if he does develop and keep pushing with this setup stuff because man, I don't want to get too ahead of myself. I'm seeing a few Verbata vibes with some of his possessions and some of how he's dishing it. He's more of a Garland type player, but if you can get even anywhere near Verbata with his passing and the overall leadership on the ice and driving his line, that, I'll be completely satisfied with that. Just 100%.
All right. Now that I've shown off my photo, I had to flex it a little. We can move on to the only happy tag of this video for this week, which is that for a brief moment, the Coyotes watched as Ontario burned to the ground because their precious
it was funny.
Their precious Leafs lost to the LOL Coyotes. And, man, that was one of the best defensive games I think I've ever watched the Coyotes play. It might be up there. I think the only other one that I remember being better was I think the Coyotes beat Chicago 2-1. And Chicago had 40 or 50 shots, and this was a few years ago. And that this was when they were making their push for the playoffs, and then they ended up 1 or 2 games short. Man, this game was something to be watched. All of the elite players on Toronto were real heckin' quiet. And every chance that they had, there was a white jersey all over them, being an absolute nuisance. And the only good chances they really got ended up having really bad bounces or puck luck or things like that. The first one was, I believe it was a blocked shot off of Brown that landed right under his feet, and he had no clue where it was. And Nylander picked up the garbage and absolutely roofed it. Great shot by him. And then 20 something seconds later, bad pass by, I think it was Stetcher into Moser's feet, I want to say. I don't remember who it was. Into another defenseman's feet, and Marner picks up the thank you very much change and ties up the game. So not a great look for that 20 or 30 seconds it was. It was not good hockey. And luckily they got lucky with the penalty that I don't know who that was on Toronto, but he just decided that Gostisbehere didn't need his stick anymore and just flung it right out of his hand. And
it was Kiefe. No, not Kiefe. Who the hell was it? You keep going. I want to double check the game here.
But he flung his stick right out of his hand, and yes, unfortunately, that is a penalty. Believe it or not, I saw some people saying that that wasn't a penalty. It is. I personally think if you do an upward stick lift on somebody and they let go of their stick, not a penalty. Your stick lifting is in the game. You can do it without the puck. Stick lifting is a perfectly acceptable action. The problem is that when you swing downwards onto a stick and you knock it out of their hands, I will say, yeah, that's a penalty. You can't swing downwards. That is absolutely going to be interference or a slash. But if you're lifting somebody's stick up to tie it up, then and they let go of their stick or flings out of their hand, then I would say, yeah, that's you're a dummy. You should have held onto your stick. Anyways, back to the play. Gostisbehere they slashed his stick out of his hands and he lost it. Penalty. They go into the power play, and of course, guess who? Gostisbehere scores. And yeah, this team looked really good until up into the last 40 seconds of the game, where the Toronto Maple Leafs tie it back up, but ring comes the other Toronto in the Situation Room, saying, "Actually, we have to look at the play," and the play is called back due to a hand pass that was missed in the offensive zone. I, at first, thought this was not a good call. And the reason I thought was because the rule that I remembered in my head, and I had it wrong, was that I thought a defending player, if they touched the puck, it was possession. And it is not. But what's weird is I think it's also written... So there's the delayed offsides, and if a defending player touches it and it comes in off the from the neutral zone into the defensive zone, it's no longer a delayed offsides, right? Mm-hmm. We've seen this a few times. I don't know how that one is possession and then the delayed offsides one isn't, because we definitely have seen like plays in the past where it like hits a defenseman's foot in the neutral zone and then it rolls over the blue line and the offsides is like nullified because technically a defending player brought it back over. Anyways, back to the play. To the rule book's discretion, I think it was right. And the reason why is because Keller had his stick up trying to knock the puck down. Obviously Riley was trying to grab it with his hand to put it down. While doing so, Keller kind of tied up Riley's stick to keep him from touching it. It touches Keller's foot a little bit. I can't really tell from the angle. It definitely looks like it moves in a non-natural way, so it definitely seemed like it was touched to me. It taps Keller's foot, moves under Riley's feet, and then Marner picks it up, and the play ensues and they score. But ultimately, they deem that Keller did not have possession of it. Therefore, the play was still considered a hand pass, and by Marner touching it, it was considered a dead play. It was very funny to watch Leafs Nation explode into a crumbling dismay, because I'm pretty sure they have already forgotten the Erik Karlsson goal against the St. Louis Blues, where that hand pass was not called, and Erik Karlsson won a game in overtime and literally won a playoff game due to a missed hand pass. Meanwhile, Leafs Nation is blowing their lid off on the Leafs losing in Game 4 of the 82-game season to the Arizona Coyotes.
Okay, so offside has never made sense. Let's not try to pretend it ever has. Let's not try to pretend like The fact that you can have your body in the offensive zone before the puck goes, and they're still like, well, under these circumstances, it's actually onside. Like, offside has never been consistent. It's never been a thing that's actually stuck to a definition. But here's how I know the hand pass rule was 100% called right without watching the play. Toronto media I saw one tweeting out, that's not in the spirit of the rule. And as soon as you say something like that, you know it is 100% to the letter of the definition of the rule, and you're trying to find a way to just like justify that it's not. The reason it's not possession is, what is the logical reason it would be? Because Keller didn't even make a kicking motion. Because even if he makes a kicking motion and that kind of brings it around, to me that should probably be possession, because he has more than enough control of it to be able to really like put it where he wants to put it, like to actually make that play. That to me should be possession. I don't know if rule wise it would be, but it should. But he's sitting there going for this board battle, and the angle we saw, it's still 50-50 whether or not it even hit his skate. It looks like it did. I think it did, but it wasn't any way that would be possession. So he bats it down off of Keller.
It was such a faint touch that even we don't truly know if it hit him or not. It could have been one of those things where we've seen a puck hit the ice and it just makes a weird bounce. It hits the edge just ever so slightly, and it goes hit and then slides the opposite direction. Like, pucks are weird. They're weird shapes. It could have been that it may not have ever touched Keller's foot.
Like I said, I still think it did, but if you're not even making a motion to where it could even be argued that you possess the puck, like if I'm in the zone and I take the puck and I shoot it right off of your shin and back to me, did you have possession of that, or did it bounce off of you? It bounced off of you. Like, there is no logical argument to call it possession. Leafs fans are just idiots because they can't fathom losing to an AHL team. Arizona shouldn't have a hockey team. They are so far below us. You had that one idiot that was like, I feel so bad, this roster is so terrible, which it really is.
Yeah, that was great.
There's a lot of heart and soul in this roster.
Before the Coyotes play Toronto, you immediately stick foot in mouth. Like, this team is the worst I've ever seen. And then the Leafs proceed to lose to the Coyotes.
And to just reiterate one more time directly at Steve Dangle, because Steve Dangle is also a bit of an idiot. What were they supposed to do? What was the player on that play supposed to do?
I heard that.
Oh, you win the board battle against the finesse player, because Clayton Keller is not Connor Garland. He is not going to outmuscle you in a board battle. Win the board battle.
I watched that video because it's always fun to watch him implode when the Coyotes beat him. Even when Toronto beats the Coyotes, I do listen to hear what he had to say. But he was like, what was he supposed to do? Either let Keller get possession so that you could take the possession from Keller, or what was the other one? He was like, or just let it sit there or something. Like, he like completely undermined the fact that, I don't know, Riley could play it with his stick. Riley could bulldoze Keller over because they both were touching the puck, so both men had the right to hit each other. He could have bulldozed Keller over. He could also kick it to his teammate. If Riley would have kicked it, again, to how I understand the rules and just logical, here's how you get possession of a hockey puck. Yeah. If you can kick it to you can make a kick pass all you want. You just cannot kick it into the goal. So if he takes his skate, winning the board battle, and kicks it over to Marner, same play happens, legal goal. Yep. Completely 100% legal goal. It's like the only reason that Steve Dangle was mad about that play is because it went against the Leafs. Same thing with every other team in the league. All right? I feel like I'm one of like 6 people that have ever watched these games, had a call go against my team that I recognize should have gone against them, and say, it sucks, but, it was the right call. Dangle is not the type that'll actually say, oh yeah, no, that was the right call. Because clearly, he's sitting there trying to make up some BS excuse when it's like, kick the puck to Marner, or whoever the hell picked it up. You kick it to them. That should justify possession. You cannot
take the puck and throw it down on the ice to your teammate in the offensive zone.
Yep.
Literally, I think like my tweet about it really should just summarize it. It's such a bad thing for the game, apparently, that you can't just pass the puck to your teammate, with your hand. That you can't just bat it over to your teammate. Apparently, hand passes are a dumb rule now. Like it's so stupid. It is so stupid because you just can't cope. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and stick to the more positive aspect here instead of just continuously talking about how just moronic a lot of Leafs fans are. But right here, Nick Ritchie scores his third goal of the season on the power play at 19:34. It was a really sloppy game. All these games have been in terms of like discipline. Coyotes are taking a lot of bad penalties.
Yeah.
I also feel like penalties, I feel like in general, are going up. And I don't have the numbers in front of me, but when Toronto gets 5 penalties...
They always start high. Every single season, they start with a lot of penalties at the beginning of the season, and then as we get closer to the playoffs, the penalties stop. They dry up.
It's got to be like a way to control like what they want to like enforce, or like, hey, we want to get jabbing or whatever. I'm just making up a term out of the game. We're gonna call this more. Hey, we want slashing to go away, or we want slashing to go down. We're having too many broken sticks, or too many controversial plays. Call every slash.
They definitely do that, because if you remember when I think it was Hurdle complained about Sidney Crosby cheating in the faceoff circle, that next season there were so many guys getting thrown out of the faceoff circle and resulting to that 2-minute penalty for delay game or whatever it was, where like you get thrown out and then the next person gets thrown out and it's just like an automatic penalty. Like they were calling that nonstop next year, and that was like to essentially combat people from stop cheating in the circles. And I do think that the same thing happens every year with a lot of penalties. I think what it ultimately is, I don't think it's, hey, let's control this. All right, now that we've controlled this, lean up. I think what it is as you get closer to the playoffs, I don't think refs want to be directly responsible for a win or a loss. I think refs are afraid of, like, I am the reason that this team is going to the Stanley Cup Finals and this team is not. Like, I think that's what ends up happening. So that's why, unfortunately, as many people hate it, that's why even up calls exist. That's why the refs, like, you're never going to do your job good, but as long as you do it good enough to where you feel like both teams hated you, like, then that's a good sign, right? You want both teams to not be happy with you overall wise. And
just to go back to that slash, it was Cal Yarncroke, and he's like, hold on to your effing stick. Last I checked, okay, the puck's not even in the air. Again, just to show how moronic Leafs fans are. Also, I was thinking of Kampf. Kiefe is the idiot coach that the Coyotes don't have elite talent. Well, that not elite talent having roster beat you. Not only that, Nicholas Ritchie has more goals, so does Shane Gostisbehere, than Austin Matthews this year. Yeah. And I raise you one Dylan Guenther and Clayton Keller. We do have elite talent. We just don't have the amount of elite talent that Toronto has. So it's like the comment itself. And the reason like I give him crap for it is because it was very immature and like he was crying about it. Not like, oh, well, the statement wasn't factually correct. It's like, no, you have more elite talent, and that elite talent isn't playing the way they should. But at the same time, you can't say that we have none.
I would say that by the end of this year, I think JJ Moser is going to make a good statement of he might be an elite talent for this team going forward.
I hope so.
Yeah,
I'm not comfortable making a prediction on that yet, but I hope so because he has a lot of the tool set.
Yeah, just watching him play and the way he plays defensively and offensively, I think he is going to show himself to be a very special person on this team. And technically, we also have Chychrun, even though he didn't participate in that game. And I would argue that Chychrun's pretty special.
Every team wants him.
Yeah, like,
every team is
there's
like
a reason
spent
the asking
years trying to
price.
say he's not that good because they want the Coyotes to drop down and give them a steal of a player.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't have the interest you do in Chychrun if he wasn't elite. If he didn't have the injury history, the Coyotes right now, he'd be on another team, probably for at least the last year, and we would have got 2 firsts and probably your best prospect.
Yeah.
if he didn't have injury issues. Maybe
Yeah.
even more, just
Yeah,
depending on.
I think people forget how good he is when he is playing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
he is a special talent when he is playing. Even last year, where he was very disgruntled by the way he was deployed on the Coyotes. Defensively, the metrics, right? When you look at all the numbers, he was extremely good still, like defensively. At least
I was
to
just gonna
my
say that too. Like defensively,
yeah.
yes.
Like to my knowledge, I remember like looking at those statistics and it was like, yeah, he still very much shows that he can play the defensive side of the game very high level.
He just you could tell he wasn't engaged like offensively, which it's not fine because it's directly helped lead to his value going down. But at the same time, like I understand it. I understand where he's coming from. But anyway, getting back to that play,
Yeah.
so it was Kampf I was thinking of, but it was Yarn Crook that made the penalty and Kiefe being a little crybaby about it.
By the way, I'm gonna interrupt you here. I believe it's
Huh?
I think it's just Keefe. I don't think it's Kiefe. I think it's
Well,
Sheldon
then
Keefe.
I'm not giving him any respect until he stops being a toddler. Anyway,
Okay,
Kiefe.
You calling him Kiefe then?
Anyway, but on this play that Yarncroke is slashing the puck as a stick out of Gostisbehere's hand, he's not even playing the puck yet. The puck is behind the net. I think it's off to the other side. He's cutting across to cut away the lane with one hand on the stick, looking at the puck. The puck is it's what? Yeah, it's got to be within about a foot, and the player is trying to play the puck for it to be. You can hit him.
Yeah, it's the intent of playing the puck. So it's not even within a foot. If your intention is to play the puck, then you are deemed acceptable for, tying up or hitting or whatever it is. And there is an argument to like in front of the net, the rules are like very gray and there's a lot more dirty stuff that goes on in front of the net. But at the same time, Gostisbehere was literally like T-posing. So his arms were out and his hand was in one stick all the way extended. Like he was just standing there as the puck was in the corner and there was a puck battle going on in the corner.
And a downward slash. It wasn't a stick lift because again,
Yeah.
I'm going to agree with you on that. A stick lift, I feel like, is also more like natural motion that also would not fit the definition of a slash. Whereas this downward slash on a player that isn't even around the puck, that's not involved in the play essentially, other than positioning himself. And you're going to cry about that, like, oh, hold on to your stick again. It wasn't a stick lift, and, he's going for the puck right there. You lift it up, and you sneak up from behind him. Valid play. Completely valid. All right?
Yep.
But when you downward slash someone's stick out of their head, and they're not even looking at you, how are you going to try to make that argument other than just you're salty? Other than the fact that you're salty and crying about it, how do you make that argument?
And
anyway.
And on top of that, that's not even really a gray area play. The NHL has called that consistently for at least the past 5 years now, where you swing downwards, it is going to be a penalty every single time. I've seen it time and time again. I haven't really seen any inconsistencies in that play. I've seen so many Coyotes take that penalty as well. Like, that is definitely a consistent call that they do call. And it's not just, oh, they hate the Leafs. Like, no. You swing downwards on a stick of a player that's not in the game, or that's not in the play, like, you are absolutely going to get called for interference or slashing.
And also, do you not think after the pandemic, when they lost all this money, that if it's a bias against the Leafs, I'm gonna go ahead and just shoot that down. You don't think logically they'd want the center of the hockey universe to win the cup coming out of the pandemic to help with revenue? You're telling me right now the revenues wouldn't have been insane for a 7-game series with the Stanley Cup Final Series in Toronto? You're telling me that it wouldn't have been what they made, $4 billion last year? You're telling me that wouldn't have at least added an extra $1 billion in terms of overall revenue with every single thing accounted in?
Yep.
Now, that's probably a little bit of hyperbole, but at the same time, the logic's not that far off. And it's like, oh, well, shouldn't that prove as a bias against? No, I think it just proves that Toronto is constantly not playing the way they should. They constantly underachieve. They constantly play down. It's more of a, on them thing, because that Yarncroke penalty, all he had to do was not. All he had to do was not slash him. The Coyotes don't go on the power play. Gostisbehere does not score that goal. Toronto might have even scored on that possession. Like, that possession right there could have led to a goal.
Yeah,
and then Toronto wins.
What I'm wondering is Gostisbehere has a stick all the way pointed towards the blue line, right? Mm-hmm. If I'm Yarncroke, why am I going after his stick? I'm going behind him, and I'm skating to the other side of him, and then somebody's going to throw me a pass under his foot, under his left foot, and there's nothing he can do about it. You throw a pass next to the foot, just far enough away from them to kick it, but far enough, like, to where your stick can't get over in time, like, that's right in the triangle area. Like, they're screwed if they're defensemen. The only option would be to lay down, and it's difficult to lay down that quickly if you get a zip of a pass across. Like, I don't know what he was thinking. Like, just go drive the net. Drive the net. What are you doing?
Just, literally, just don't. Like anything, even if he just stood there and called Gostisbehere like a coward and just like trash talked him. Even if he literally just did that, the play results in anything but that penalty.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand just the total lack of accountability on that team. Like, it...
See, is it the lack of accountability, or is it the feeling of invincibility, Matt? See, that's the thing.
Why not
Everybody's out to get the Leafs, except these players feel invincible to take really dumb penalties late into the third period in a tied game.
I think it's both. I think one directly leads into another. Or it's like, you think you're invincible because, on paper, right up there with Colorado, Toronto's been one of the best teams in the league for years.
Oh, yeah.
You add Austin Matthews to that roster, you're competing. Because Austin Matthews is just that good.
Yep.
Mitch Marner, I think he's overpaid. Still a damn good player. All right? Even with that cap hit, if the Coyotes were making a playoff run, they're like, hey, we'll trade you Mitch Marner for a very, bargain price. I'm not turning that down. Nylander, good player. They got a couple of really good defenders. Their goaltending situation's a joke, but they chose to put themselves in that position. John Tavares, even though he kind of disappears at times, this season he's been on a different level. He's had a very good year. He's been consistently one of the, top 20 minimum, even 15 centers in the game since he broke in to the NHL.
Yeah.
Consistently one of the best. And top 20 might even be disrespecting him. Saying top 20 might be disrespectful.
Yeah.
So it's like, you gotta stop acting like everyone's out to get the Leafs, when in reality, you're telling me right now, it's like, with how consistent they underachieve, it's not just because there's no accountability within the locker room, because they think that they're just so much better than everyone else.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't get it. It's either the refs are out to get us, or they're doing their job properly. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, when you victim blaming? No, not victim blaming. I don't remember what the term is.
I think of shaming?
No, like when you make excuses, when you're just constantly making excuses.
Oh, you play victim. You play victim.
When you play victim like that constantly, like you're not going to go far in the playoffs if you're just going to play victim. Look at a perfect example of this is the St. Louis Blues when they won their cup, right? Errant hand pass leads to a goal, leads to a game winner, right? What did the Blues do? Did they sit there and cry about a missed call by the refs and how they got gypped out of a potential win because of this play? Or did they go, yep, sucks, move on? Just saying, better mindset to have than to sit there and cry about it.
Look at Tampa Bay and Colorado. And Colorado is one of the biggest examples of me having to eat some crap. I still stand by in 2020. I was right. They didn't have the depth to make it through. But they faced failure so many times with the expectations being cup or bust. They just kept going. Nathan McKinnon wasn't talking about how terrible the refs were, at least that I saw in interviews. They weren't sitting there saying, oh, it's the other team's fault. The refs didn't do their job. They kept, through all the frustration, the underachieving compared to their expectations. They kept trying to add, they kept working hard, and they got their cup. The Tampa Bay Lightning, they got swept in the first round by Columbus. They should have won the cup that year with how well they were playing. Guess what? They were called mentally soft. They toughened up. They kept going. They pushed through. The truly elite teams will do it. Everyone gets knocked down. Every single person gets knocked down. And I don't even, fault you if you do try to scapegoat a few times. Because sometimes there is a scapegoat. Sometimes it was out of your control. Sometimes it's just you're letting off some steam. You're frustrated. And then after, you say whatever, you kind of calm yourself, you can refocus, and then you go out there and do what you can do that's within your control and work hard. I feel like this team doesn't. And it's just their fan base is constantly saying how they're the best team in the league. They are going to win the cup. This team is better than everyone else. Everyone should be kissing the ground they walk on. This is all just hyperbole, but I don't think it's that far off. But then it's never their fault when they underachieve. Until it is, but then it isn't. But then they should get rid of Mitch Marner. But then they also shouldn't, because Mitch Marner is too good. But then he's also not good enough. And then you could say that with any player on this team that isn't named Austin Matthews. Any player on that team, I guarantee over the last 3 or 4 years, you've had Leafs fans singing their praises, then saying how terrible they were and how they should be traded or cut or bought out. And then, it's a great contract.
Yep. Yep. Only a matter of time for Michael Bunting wants actual money and not whatever pity money that he's been given. And when that happens, they're going to throw him to the side like Woody with Andy. I don't want to play with you anymore. Because Michael Bunting is a damn good player. Because it isn't just, he went to Toronto and Austin Matthews unlocked him. We saw him that year in Arizona with, he didn't have the talent that everyone else around him that he does in Toronto, and he was he was on pace for 20 that year because he came. I think he was on pace for 30. I think he scored 15 or 16 in 26 games or something like that. He was.
I'm gonna fact check this real quick, but at the same time, it's
cruising with goals.
He was on pace for some very good numbers.
Yeah. I mean, it just comes down to you're the mecca of hockey, and everybody's out to get you. It's like chasing the boogeyman. It's
10 goals in 21
sad.
games.
It was what?
10 goals in 21 games.
Okay, so multiply that by 4, so he's on pace for 40 goals.
He was on pace for anywhere between 33 and 40. Just because I don't know the exact math, but simple math, 33 and 40.
Yeah.
And he had Garland. He had Keller. He played, I think mostly is with Garland, not Keller, but there was a couple pieces. He didn't have Matthews and Marner and John Tavares around him, and he was still on pace for that. He's always had that talent. Ever since he broke out into the NHL. So he'll get paid. Whether Toronto actually decides to wisen up and move on from one of their $10 million players, because having $40 million in 4 players is not a good idea. And spreading the money around. Because here's the thing. I know it's just a basic model, but you had those generic, hey, here's what you should be paying for each position models for some of the more successful teams. It's your top line, should be your highest paid, but they're in a position where 3 of their highest paid players are split between their top 2 lines.
Could you imagine?
Else is nothing.
Could you imagine what this team looks like without John Tavares and having another $10 million to play with?
This year,
that's
probably
2 to 3
worse because of how good he's played.
Well,
but previous year is probably better.
Say what you will, take a slightly less player. I get center depth is important, and they do have a really good 1-2 punch with Matthews and Tavares, but how good has it been, right? It's been great, except it hasn't been able to get you out of the first round. Why? Because you need role players. You need really good role players. And when you don't have really good role players, you're not going to make it out of, the first couple of rounds. It's just, that's the truth. You have to have somebody that's willing to sacrifice it all, who wants it more than the other guys on the ice. And ultimately, when you don't have that money to pay that guy, a perfect example of this for me would be Colorado when they picked up the guy from the Habs. Is it Lehkonen? Arturi Lehkonen? Like, I remember McKinnon had a quote after that game, and he had scored the overtime goal to go into the Stanley Cup Finals. So it was the conference finals, and he had scored the overtime goal. And I think McKinnon said a quote along the lines of like, "I don't care what we had to pay. If it was 6 first-round picks, I love this guy." Right? Like something along the lines of that quote. And that's just the truth. Like, no matter what you have to pay, you have to have an elite role player like that as well on your team. Those are the guys that win you games.
It's also like, oh, well, people will always take a pay cut to play in Toronto. Some will. It's like, yeah, some will. Spezza was probably worth anywhere between $1.5 to $2 million when he was getting paid league minimum for the last year or two.
Yeah,
and he kept coming back because he loved Toronto. Good on him. I love
Giordano.
Spezza. I think that he got the raw deal towards the end of his tenure in Ottawa because like he was the captain, so he wore a lot of the losses, even though he was consistently like one of the best 2 players in the team. Pretty much the entire time he was there.
Yeah.
So it's like you'll get a couple guys like that. You will, but when Michael Bunting, comes up for his next contract, going to Toronto was the best business decision he could have made because they needed a good scorer. He brought good scoring. You take that pay cut for a couple of years. If he scores between 20 and 30 this year, he could probably get anywhere between 3 to 6, depending on like if there's a bidding war, depending on if the team really wants
I would
him.
say so. Like seeing all the contracts that are being handed out, and on top of that, the potential of the cap going up as high as $4 million next year. Like, yeah, I could see it. Which is absolutely insane, by the way, if the cap does go up $4 million.
Well, I think it's supposed to be it's after this season. It could go up by upwards of that, or it might just go up the same million in the year after. It's going to have a big jump within the next 2 years. And the projections are actually staying on.
If the escrow fees are paid by the players, then the cap will go up $4 million. And if the escrow fees are not, then I think it's only $1 million. But it will be going up next year regardless. We did get that confirmation.
So it's like, let's just say I'm going to throw a random team. No logic, no I'm looking at their cap. Just a random team. Let's say that Montreal wants Michael Bunting. They have more cap space. Okay, we'll sign you to 3 years, 4.5. Just as an example.
Yep.
Okay, well now Toronto has to fill that goal scoring spot. And yeah, most NHL caliber players, you pair them with Matthews, they're going to be about a 20-goal scorer because that is how good of a passer Matthews is, how good of a passer John Tavares is. They're going to be around 20 goals. But how many players that will legitimately help elevate the team are you going to get for about $1 million? Because you still have to spread the money around everywhere. People, how great that Giordano contract was. He's still good, but he's not as good as he used to be.
No.
And it's like they keep tricking themselves into talking about how
Wayne
much value
Simmons
they're getting. Good. He had a really
Wayne
good
Simmons.
goal the other
I
night.
loved the player, except he's at the end of his career, and we all know what happens to power forwards at the end of their careers. Tapers off like a cliff. That's what happened.
That one really good goal the other night. One really good play. Is he going to score 20 goals for him next year? Is he going to score 25 this year? Just for example. It's like he's a bottom sixer at this point. Still a good NHLer. On any roster, he's at least going to be your extra forward because brings that veteran influence, good guy in the locker room from what I can tell. He still can play at the NHL level. Still good upside there. Is that going to be someone that, if you need to, you can plug into your top 6 and help you win a playoff series?
Yep.
When Michael Bunting gets his money, unless you're trading somebody else or buying someone out or whatever to free up more money. Because even if it goes up $4 million, all right, so in a vacuum, let's just say the roster stays the exact same and Bunting takes that $4 million. Okay, what if they still have 2 or 3 more big holes?
Yep.
Because it's just, when you keep constantly spending to the cap stupid money, yeah, you can have, 3 of the best 15 players or whatever in the league, but when everything else is held together with duct tape because you have okay players, some decent players, and a couple really good players, it's not going to be good enough.
Nope.
because then the
Nope.
expectations are realistically unrealistic for Barner, John Tavares, and Matthews, as it should be, unfortunately, because they sign these big contracts. You need them to perform. You need them to be clutch. You need them to do whatever they can whenever you need it. So it's like it kind of sucks for them, but you knew what you signed up for. We talked way too much about the Leafs.
Yeah, sorry, I was yawning there. Dead air
Anyway.
with my dead mouth.
Anyway, so they win that game 4-2. Then against Montreal, they lose 6-2. I wanted to get this stat out of the way. Nick Ritchie, his third from Gostisbehere and Moser on the power play. That was the third time that exact goal was scored, all on the power play.
Yeah,
that was their sixth goal of the season. He had half of them.
Exact same way as well. All 3 times. Triangle to the middle. Ritchie on the weird offhand shot. Or is it far side? I don't know how that works. I don't know. I've always despised the non-wheelhouse shots where you pass it into the guy's, stick. Instead, you're going across his body to his stick. I don't know how it works. It's been working, but it's been working, so I can't complain.
All right. I want to talk just very briefly about a couple of point streaks, because I think it's Boyd and Keller. Or it might just be Kells, because Boyd has 3 points in his last 2 games, 1 goal, 2 assists, but Keller has been sneaking his way on to the scoring sheet every single game. 2 goals, 2 assists, 4 points. So except for Pittsburgh, that one game, he's been on the board every single night. Yep. Keller has found ways to be around the net. He's found ways to put the puck where it needs to be. A couple of bad plays. It's that I love that one goal, that trash goal. Was it last night or yesterday against Toronto, where he just put it into the weirdest spot? It's like, Ottawa. Oh, how did he figure that out? How did he pull that off? Yeah, it was luck, but it's also because Clayton Keller is kind of an elite talent. Yeah, just saying, he's kind of elite. He's kind of pretty good. So, we at least want to talk about that real quick. They're in their first 5 games, 1-4-0. That is an improvement from last year's 0-4-1. I got a lot of players that are looking pretty good. Dylan Gunther gets his first goal. He has a goal and an assist in his first 4 games. He's on pace for about 41 points. His 5th game, I called it 5 games and he gets sent back down. 5th game will be on the 22nd against Columbus. In Columbus, I have a feeling, because I also called that he was going to get his goal on the Canadian road trip. I got a feeling that he is, because how well he's played, how good his shot's been, he might have stolen an NHL spot for the rest of the year. Doesn't mean he did 100%. Doesn't mean he's not going down. But I have a gut feeling he might have stolen a roster spot.
Just to update you, it's the 25th. You said the 22nd.
Oh, 25th. I apologize. I got my dates confused.
I'm like, it is the 23rd, man.
I'm
being gaslit in 4K. What is going on here?
Gaslit.
Am I in a fever dream? I swear it is not the 22nd. We have already passed the 22nd. The 25th, though, yeah.
But anyway, just taking a quick glance at the point scorers. Christian Fischer, goal and an assist, 2 points in 5 games. He's looked surprisingly well. Already talked about Gunther. Maccelli has 2 assists in 5 games. Krauser, I know it's an empty net goal, but 1 goal, 2 assists, 3 points. That hopefully wakes up his scoring a bit. Moser, a goal and 3 assists, 4 points. Boyd, a goal and 3 assists. Keller, 2 and 2. Ritchie, 3 goals, 1 assist, 4 points. More goals than Austin Matthews. Clayton Keller, Shane Gostisbehere, and Nick Ritchie all have more goals than Austin Matthews, by the way. Shane Gostisbehere, 2 goals, 3 assists, 5 points. I think he has scored in every game but 1. I want to go ahead and just fact check real quick. 2 assists in Pittsburgh, 2 points in Toronto, 1 in Boston, so he's scoreless in his last 2. With how good he's been, he's stayed on that pace. Just as good as last year, if not a little better. That first-round pick, I can taste it. Yeah. Gone by the deadline. First-round pick. Can he elevate it to a first and anything else?
We'll see. We will see. I definitely am. I'm thinking it's going to be a first, and if it's a team that's more guaranteed to make the playoffs, it'll be a little bit of a later first, obviously. Mm-hmm. But I agree. I think he has played well enough to potentially get a first-round pick for how well he has played.
So I did want to. That was a good trade.
Yeah, seriously. I did want to note that I feel like Krause has struggled a little bit on that top line when Nick Schmaltz went down. Maltzy went down,
He's
and
much better in that middle six role, I
yeah.
think.
I
Which also
just
means that contract might it might end up looking a little worse in the long term, but then considering the fact we need NHL talent for the next few years in the ASU arena, I feel like that might mitigate.
yeah. I mean, you need people here, right? Like it's going to
Mm-hmm.
be a rough 3 seasons down in the Mullet Arena. Um, that's just the truth. It'll be fun. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's going to suck. It's going to be fun. Just you need a reason for people to come and show up, and signing a guy to a long-term contract and him becoming one of the faces of your franchise is always important.
All right, I think we need to speed things up a little bit because we kind of have to get through. I want one last Coyotes topic and then well, kind of college, but one I want to talk about Logan Cooley too because he's also still looking pretty good down there.
Okay, you got to speed run this because we have hit the 1 hour and 30 minute mark. So
Yep, speed running. All right, so first and foremost, the ASU women, as of right now, I'm going to refresh their timeline. They were still undefeated this season. They went into University of Mass something or whatever. They won back-to-back. They played their third, game in a row today against Rhode Island. They win that. They are, is that 6-0 on the season? Morgan Walker had her first hat trick the other night. For the men, I went to the game last night against Colorado College. They win 6-1. The first goal goes to Robert Mastrosimone from Josh Doan, and Mastrosimone has just been kind of ridiculous. Matthew Copperroot has actually been scratched for the last couple of games. He's not listed as injured or anything, so that came off as weird to me. I want to note that, but also I need to actually figure out why that is. But they've won their last 2 in a row, 5-3 and 6-1 respectively. They are now 4-4-0. And Josh Doan, I kind of want to update how I've noticed him play. I feel like either I wasn't paying enough attention when it's like, oh yeah, he plays a lot like his dad, or if it's altered this season. He's playing a lot more of like the kind of finesse role. He's playing a lot more of the pretty passes, good shots, a little less board battles, but he was pretty gassed throughout the first 2 periods. I left after the second period so I can get home on time, and I still didn't get home until like 10. But he's looking pretty gassed. I think they're playing him a lot of minutes. That and the fact that there was an attempted murder at the end of the first period, so we lost, I think, 2 players to a game misconduct. But it's like, I think he might end up being, like, more skillful than his dad. And his dad, when he was younger, was still a 30-goal scorer, I think, twice. So that's some pretty good stuff there. Logan Cooley. So it was brought to my attention, Logan Cooley only expressed interest in going to college for 1 season and then trying to turn pro at the end of the year.
Yep.
I would very much like it if he transfers to ASU at the end of the season and goes 1 more year in college.
I don't think that's happening.
Cooley and Donor.
I think what we're going to see is we're going to see a line with Connor Bedard in the middle, Logan Cooley on the wings, and Clayton Keller on the other wing. And is it going to be a miraculous, fun line that has no physicality, but will absolutely blow your wheels off with skill? It will skill it up, as Tyson Nash says.
I still think we're getting Michkov or maybe Fantilli. I think
Fantilli is absolutely going 2nd overall. I don't care what you say. Like,
we have a shot.
Dude, have you seen that guy's stats? I think after 5 games, he has like 12 or 14 points in college.
Him and Bedard are playing so well right now, but I think technically on pace, he's playing better than Bedard in the draft year.
He is.
So now you have
He's
the drama,
legit.
oh, is he going to be number 1 overall? I'm like, no. Bedard's still going number 1. But Fantilli is showing how good he is. Like, Coyotes fans, we are not getting number 1 overall.
Nope.
But I would jump up and down if we get number 2.
Yeah,
if we get for the first time in our franchise history get number 2.
This is like the McDavid Eichel draft, except we won't be screwed out of Eichel this time. Hopefully.
Hopefully. Knock on wood.
Yeah.
But so I'm just saying, Cooley's looked good in Minnesota. I would not mind, like, the concept, because again, we were talking about it. This team's going to look very different after the trade deadline. I wouldn't mind if after college is over, he signs the ELC and plays like the last handful of games, so maybe it doesn't burn the first year. But it's like I wouldn't mind that. The problem is I also don't want to rush him because we're not going to be a playoff team next season.
Yeah.
So it's like you don't need to rush him, but at the same time, if you can get him an extra NHL season, maybe when it's time to compete, he'll be that extra year along in his development. I think it's like a 50-50. It's like I like the idea, but I don't, but I do, but I don't. Please just transfer to ASU and give me a season of Cooley and Donor, please and thank you.
All right. Are you ready for my next hot take of insanedom right here?
Yes, sir. Do it. Hit me.
Okay. The Coyotes will trade Jacob Chikrin for Matthew Nyes and whatever else needs to be done. Matthew Nyes, who plays currently with Logan Cooley in Minnesota or wherever it is, it will be next year's line will be Matthew Nyes, Logan Cooley on the second line, and then whoever you want to toss in the wing, maybe a Maccelli, and then first line is Bedard, Keller, and whoever else, maybe Schmaltz or another player.
Did you say Gunther on the second line, or did you forget about him?
Oh, that's right. No, Gunther could probably
Gunther
go
on the first.
Yeah, Gunther could go on the first.
All right, so I want to talk about this. I didn't pay much attention. I was so excited by the Josh Doan pick. So, funny enough, someone on Twitter posted last night, hey, seeing Derek Stepan on the ice reminds me of that time that they traded a second round pick for him.
Yeah, second round pick for him.
I have my Stepan jersey right here. I wore to the Mullet Arena until I wasted another $75 because I have a problem and I have $20 for gas for the next 2 weeks. But that's besides the point. Turns out I was following these picks. That pick turned into Josh Doan.
Oops.
Directly because of number 21, Derek Stepan, who, funny enough, Shane also wore 21 for the Coyotes very briefly early on in his career. Because of number 21 being traded, Joshua Doan comes home.
Yep.
We get to keep the donor. Now, a couple of picks later, 43rd overall, we take Ilya Fedotov. Nothing's come of him yet. He's still playing over in Russia. And down at number 60 overall, we get Moser, who already has... I'm just going to spoil this real quick. When he was taken at 60th overall, he has the second most games played behind only Cole Sillinger, whose brother Lucas plays for ASU this year. A lot of little fun connections.
Yeah.
And
also fun connection. We should have had Cole Sillinger until freaking Chaika screwed us over our first round pick. Because that was the next guy after our forfeited pick. We had 11 or 10, and then he went the pick after.
Yep, he was 12. If we would have kept 11 and still traded to get Gunther, because that trade probably still happens.
Yep.
That means we get Gunther and Cole Sillinger with the next season Lucas Sillinger transferring over to ASU, and we just and they're both, I think, the children of Mike Sillinger, who played for the Coyotes for I think a season.
Yep.
Well,
he played for every team. He played for every team.
It was like 18 teams or something. He played for more than half the league. It was ridiculous. But again, just imagine. But now, okay, we're gonna calm down, very briefly. Yanis Moses goes at 60th. Matthew Nyes goes 57th. And again, because I was so happy about Donor, didn't even pay attention to this.
Yeah.
Matthew Nyes, Arizona product. My thought process is that, because I commented on a Craig Morgan post, I seriously wonder why the Coyotes passed up on taking him when he was talking about Matthew Nyes.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't get any response or anything. That's not a dig. That's just me showing that I'm showing interest in this topic.
Yeah.
My theory has to be then that Nyes was probably who they wanted at 60. They're probably hoping that he dropped to 60, and then whatever they pick in the third round, they probably could have taken Moser, because I don't know how much interest Moser had, because he's an overager. And people are like, oh, it's a bad pick. Obviously not. He has the second most games played already in this draft, and I think he only has less points by about, is that 11? 12?
Yeah.
And Sillinger is a goal scorer.
Yeah.
So, just to put that out there, very briefly, I think it doesn't account. I don't think it accounts for this season yet. But, do you think I'm on Do you think I'm onto something there? Do you think that's probably what the strategy was?
I think you got tinfoil hat going on. If I had to guess, they probably scouted him quite a bit, and they may not have seen something that they liked, and they probably were like, we'll hold off and go with, because if you've noticed, a lot of their picking has been through Europe, right? JJ Moser, he's not an American player, he's a European player. Karel Vejmelka, he wasn't picked obviously through the draft, but he was picked up because of their foreign scouts. Like, their foreign scouts seem to be putting in a lot of work, and it seems to be that they're trusting in their foreign scouts quite a bit. So that would be my guess of why they picked up Fedotov over Nyes.
Matt Nyes.
Yeah.
I always thought it was Knees, but everyone says Nyes, so I'll finally update it. So, here's the reason I bring this up.
I mean,
not just because a little fun fact, a little trivia, but because once again, and I think it's because of the Muzzin injury this time, Toronto is attached to Chychrun in rumors.
Yep.
Does not mean that someone called me personally, hey Matt, they're making a trade. That does not mean that these conversations have happened.
Yep.
This means nothing. But they are connected. They are apparently like interest has been expressed. I don't know if a call's happened, but interest has been expressed. So, one of the rumors, and depending on where you read it, it's either that's who Arizona wants or they could want, and I can see why they would, especially with now they got Cooley.
Mm-hmm.
One of the players that they are looking at is Matt Nyes. I've already said it on record. If Toronto offers Matt Nyes, I'll take a second and a bad contract for the Chychrun trade.
That's too much.
I will jump.
The bad contract.
I'll jump. That's
too much.
I will jump. I will literally freak out and squeal like a little girl because the amount of good, borderline elite Arizona talent coming up and how now consistently it's starting to.
Yeah.
Like,
Cutter go
this
TA.
wave of Arizona talent is coming up. It's happening. Arizona really is becoming one of those, like, development hubs for hockey. And it's not going to be Minnesota in the next 2 years, but it's like they are, in my opinion, going to be the next state of hockey.
Yep.
I will stand by that. You can laugh. You can, whatever, clip me. Don't care. I think they're going to be the next state of hockey. That's just where I'm going with this.
Well, the money's
So
going.
it's like,
follow the money. As they say, follow the money.
Also, the weather's nicer here. More people, especially Canadians, love being here in the winter.
Well, you just look at like what Arizona is doing right now. The power moves that they're doing. Like, Arizona is becoming a tech hub, like Austin, Texas. They are becoming a tech hub. Why the heck would you want to leave a market that is going to be making oodles amounts of money in the next 5 years? Yeah.
And we've been building for years. Even look at Tempe. Like, I know the main reason Tempe is as big as it is because of ASU, but at this point, it is completely irrelevant. ASU could probably leave tomorrow, and with how much that city's developed, it probably wouldn't put them under.
Yep.
Just because of how much it's developed. Now, it would be disastrous. It's not going to happen, but I'm just saying, with how much it's developed, it wouldn't just get abandoned overnight. It wouldn't.
Yeah, Tempe has turned themselves around more than just being a city that's, no offense, but a leech of ASU, and they've turned themselves into something that is like, they don't just like leech off of ASU. They've become something respectable. They've generated money through other means aside from just ASU.
It's also the fastest growing city in Arizona for the last half decade or something stupid like that. Like, it's been going. All right, so that's why I want to talk about Matt Nyes, where it's like, I still wish the Coyotes would have taken him. I wouldn't trade Moser for it though. I depending on what Fedotov turns into, I right now I would not mind if you could redraft taking Nyes instead of Fedotov, but I could look dumb in a couple years. He can come in and, oh, damn, they really did their job scouting him. And if they end up getting Matt Nyes anyway, then, well, there you go. But, like, I want to talk about this because my dream growing up was always, like, I wanted to be the first, like, Arizona-born player in the NHL. That was never going to happen, by the way. That never going to happen. But the fact that I am seeing Arizona-born players, what is it, a quarter of the roster at ASU are all Arizona-born players. Demetrius Kosmuntzis, there's a couple other players, Joshua Doan. I think last year, Johnny Walker, like you were talking, he's from Scottsdale.
Yeah.
You look at a couple players in the NHL, Tage Thompson, Glendale native. Austin Matthews, even though he's born in California, he grew up here. Yep. Matt Nyes, product of here. I could probably keep going
Better
for hours.
go,
I'm
TA.
not going to.
I got the
Better
list.
go, TA.
I got the list. I was starting to list. So if anyone wants to help me, write some comments down in the section below if you're still here. Because, oh my God, we're about to hit the 2-hour mark. But, let's see here. I have the list. Where is it? Okay. So we got, also on that list, Tyler Boucher? I don't know how to say that. Sean Couturier as well. Mark Kastelik, which is that other guy who I think we just saw in Ottawa. He I think got his first goal or point or whatever.
His dad was a Roadrunner, wasn't he? Wasn't that who they were talking about?
I think so, yeah.
He's a bottom sixer, like he's a grinder type, and his dad was a Roadrunner.
Yep.
Fun fact, Jacob Chikrin's dad was also a Roadrunner.
Yep.
So it's just like, again, the amount of Arizona connections in the NHL and like growing up, like seeing this wave happen. Like, I don't know if I'm just living vicariously through everyone, but like Arizona is a hockey market. It's become a hockey producer. You literally have 2 colleges now that have their own arena or will have their own arena for them. Because, like, for hockey. Well, I think U of A is also for basketball and stuff, I think. But it's like, at the same time, you're still a lot of attention coming towards hockey.
Yeah.
Like, it's growing. You have the constant rumors that an ECHL team is going to be put in Prescott Valley, which the last team that was in Prescott was the Arizona Sundogs. They won a CHL championship. I forget what the cup was called, but it's like they won a championship. I think David Schlemko was off the roster for a year or so at that point, but it's like we have championship hockey that wasn't the Coyotes. The Roadrunners, I think 2 different iterations won championships. The Phoenix Mustangs of the... Is it WCHL? They played in the Madhouse years and years ago. They won a championship. Like, it's booming. Absolutely booming. And, like, it's a good time to be an Arizona hockey fan. And Matt Nyes, please come home. Just go to Toronto and say it stinks here. Trade me with Austin Matthews to Arizona 1-for-1 for you can have Schmaltz, I guess.
I will give you Schmaltz and Barrett Hayden.
As much as I love Hayden, yeah, I'm not looking back because, like, as good as Hayden I think still can be, and he's showing with that 2-way game, I still think third-line center is probably a good projection for... Like, if anything, he's just solidifying that. Unless the scoring starts coming, like, right next to it. Mm-hmm. We're going to have Cooley. We're going to have, hopefully,
Geeky.
at least Fantilli. We're going to have Geeky. Potentially Matt Nyes, if they do acquire him. Like, there will be plenty of center depth. People will be kicked off to the wing.
Smith.
Jack McBain could be retained as a 4th liner.
Yep.
Because of how much depth we have down the pipeline and potentially down the pipeline.
It is crazy to think 2 years removed, we may have had the worst center depth of probably the whole NHL. Prospects, everything. And, like, in 2 years, that has completely changed.
We literally could, in the next 3 to 5 years, have a top 5 to 10 center core in the league. Does not mean we will. Let's not get arrogant. But it's like they're making the moves, and if you're someone like me that's what you're looking for the improvement, you're looking for seeing where the team's headed, that should excite you. Because it looks like for once they are actually doing the rebuild right, and this is season 2, but year 3 technically, right? Because we kind of started blowing it up a little bit for Armstrong's first season with us, so it's like we've seen it consistently. They're valuing getting young players. They're valuing getting more assets. Trying to flip at the deadline. Like, showing it consistently.
Yep.
Like, we're doing it right. If the Coyotes don't win a cup with this core, which probably should solidify itself in the next 2 seasons, like Cooley, Geeky, whoever else that ends up coming up, even Maverick, probably should be here in the next 2 to 3 seasons. Like, when they hit that new arena, your core will be there.
Yep.
And if they don't win a cup with it, I'll be shocked.
Yep.
So it's like a lot to be excited for, and I genuinely hope there is smoke to that rumor that Toronto wants Chikrin. I don't care what the rest of the fan base says. I don't care what you say. I don't care if Craig Morgan laughs and unfollows me off of Twitter. If you offer me Matt Nyes, I'll take a bad contract in a second, and you can have Chikrin, and I will still think we won that trade because we got Matt Nyes. I do not care.
All right. Well, we are quickly approaching the 2-hour mark. Yeah, so we have effectively almost recorded 2 episodes in one. I hope you all enjoyed. I am going to quickly e-bag here. So if you could please give us a like, a follow, a subscription on whatever platform you're listening to us on. And tell your friends, you know. We are the best subpar Coyotes content out there. So make sure to get... Subpar.
You have this. Have you seen my hair? Have you seen how good I look?
Subpar. No, but for realsies, yeah, make sure to give us a like, a follow, or whatever. You know what to do. Anyways, this has been episode 31 and 32 apparently. No, joking. All kidding aside, I am going to cut us off there and say bye-bye, everyone.
Go away. See you later.